It's time to talk about the MCU shows. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris and welcome back to another video. So today we're getting into the MCU shows and one glaring issue that I have with them, something that I just wanted to talk about, compare them to some other shows, and overall just address if they live up to the hype or not. But before I do so, make sure to hit the like button, comment down below your thoughts on the MCU TV show so far, and make sure to subscribe to that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future MCU videos. Also, shout out you and reviews for the shirt on Vengeance. So as of right now, we have a fair share of MCU TV shows. We started with WandaVision, then we got the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, which was an animated series, Hawkeye, and Moon Knight is currently airing. And none of these shows are terrible, or even really bad shows in my opinion. But they all suffer from kind of the same formula and not really being anything too remarkable. Now I'm gonna go show by show and kind of tell you the issue I have with each one and why they're just not the best shows ever, especially if you look at TV outside of the MCU and even other superhero shows from both Marvel and DC. These shows just feel a little bit average and almost not very rewatchable compared to a lot of the other programs that we're getting on TV right now. So starting with WandaVision, the one that kickstarted it all, I'll say this off the bat, the hype for this show was so high because we had waited so long for a new MCU project. We hadn't had one since July of 2019, and then in January of 2021, we got WandaVision, and we were all like, oh my gosh, this is new, this is so exciting. The first actual Marvel content directly to Disney+. It was the introduction of a new era. It was a very unique premise with these 30-minute sitcom episodes, each one taking place in a different decade, essentially. And the cliffhanger ending of episode 5, where Evan Peters' Quicksilver, at least we believed to be him at the time, kind of shattered everyone's world and broke the internet because it was like, oh my gosh, we're actually getting the Fox X-Men characters in the MCU. It was revolutionary at the time. They ended up dropping the ball with it, in my opinion, as we obviously saw this was a Ralph Boner joke, and it ended up being a throwaway and somewhat insulting. There's still hope they could maybe right the wrongs of that in Multiverse of Madness. This show doesn't really have any urgency if you go back and try and rewatch it. It's all over the place. The penultimate episode is a flashback for the majority of the time, and it doesn't do too much to really push the MCU forward, but we see Vision and her family fade away again, but this is nothing new because we've seen Vision die multiple times. I can continue nitpicking this show all day. I just don't think it's great TV. I think that it had a lot of hype, and the week-to-week speculation is what made it so special. Plus, it was the first of all these MCU shows, so there's that nostalgic feeling, but as an overall body of work, it's not too impressive in my opinion. Then we move on to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I think was a bit of a step up from WandaVision. You've got Bucky and Sam, two characters who never really got their time to shine in the movies, really getting fleshed out. However, the show was only 6 episodes long. I think they could have taken more time with it, spread it out a little bit more, and 6 episodes is something I'm going to be talking about a lot moving forward. I love how Sam becomes Captain America, and they really tackle a side of Bucky they strayed away from as we really see him torn here and having to adjust to a new life, basically freed from this mental prison he's been in for so long. The overall show had its hits and misses, but it was only 6 episodes and it really flew by. Then we roll around to Loki, another show that is 6 episodes long. They kind of found its footing at the very end, but ended very abruptly and doesn't really have a massive connection to the MCU right now. We're still waiting to see how this really plays into it because it kind of takes place outside of time and space. So the whole experience is pretty trippy, and we don't really know, again, the roles that this plays. The biggest thing this did was show that there are variants of Loki, which kind of plays into how there can be variants of other characters in probably Multiverse of Madness and other projects. I enjoyed Loki on a week-to-week basis, but by the end, I just felt like there was a lot of unanswered questions and it didn't really satisfy me. The first episode intrigued me, the second episode was all right, and the third one kind of was wishy-washy. The fourth episode, there was a big revelation, and then the fifth episode was good, but not really related to everything else, and the sixth episode was a decent ending, but it didn't really satisfy me. Then we roll around to What If, which is the clear anomaly or outlier of this group. It is an animated series. It's like 9 episodes long. Each one is like its own individual story. The only importance this show has in the MCU is that it's probably going to see live action characters in Multiverse of Madness, but overall, nothing special about this show really. A lot of the characters and episodes were very throwaway, but some of them were more intriguing, like the Doctor Strange episode or the zombie episode. It just feels kind of irrelevant and so far detached from the MCU at this current moment in time. Then we got Hawkeye, which I think is a lovely show. It's a holiday special, essentially, in my eyes. It's something I will watch every Christmas season, and it really is a simple story, which I'm okay with. A lot of these multiversal shows are trying to be too grand for their own good. We get Clint Barton, who's just trying to lay low and retire, but then you got Kate Bishop, a mega fan who ends up intertwined or intertangled in this massive plot. You got Kingpin coming back from the Daredevil show, and it is a really solid show in my opinion. I think it stuck the landing, and this is the outlier of all the MCU shows. It's my favorite. It's the sweetest, and I just love Kate Bishop as a character. The relationship between Kate and Clint develops so much from the opening to the end of this show. Yelena's in here, one of my favorite characters from Black Widow, and a clear scene stealer in Phase 4 of MCU. And now we arrive at Moon Knight. We are 4 episodes through, and it's kind of followed the same formula as Loki and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where the first episode is pretty solid. It hooks you in. The second episode kind of meanders a bit. The third one loses some people, and the fourth one has this crazy big reveal that kind of sucks everyone back in. So now we're sitting here and waiting, wondering, will Moon Knight stick the landing? And to be honest with you, based on history, it's kind of hard to think that it will. Spoilers for Moon Knight, by the way. But I could see episode 5 taking place entirely in the hospital, much like how episode 5 of Loki deals with all the variants on that other planet. It's very detached from the story that we've seen so far, and then by the time episode 6 ends, we'll probably still want a little bit more because there's simply not enough time with 6 episodes to make a truly compelling, great story from start to finish. Now, if you compare the MCU Disney Plus shows to the Marvel Netflix shows like Daredevil and The Punisher, you've got 13 episodes in those shows. That is double the length of an MCU Disney Plus show with only 6 episodes. In that time, you can not only take your time with characters more, but you can throw in more action scenes and just pivotal character moments in general because you have double the amount of time. I think the 6-episode formula has become fairly predictable for the MCU Disney Plus shows. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, Hawkeye, and Moon Knight all kind of follow the same formula if you really break it down. And if I'm just comparing the quality of these shows to shows like Daredevil and The Punisher, which share the Marvel name, it's drastically different. First of all, from a visual perspective, the Marvel Netflix shows, they have more pop to them, they feel more realistic. They actually receive the TVMA rating or R rating so they can have more blood and violence, which really allows you to be a little more perturbed and feel like disturbed in these situations and really buy in from an emotional perspective. You can see the true gruesome nature of the characters and the horrific acts that they partake in or receive. There's also more like of a directional flair in those shows. For example, the one-take hallway fights in Daredevil, or even the gorgeous shots in The Punisher. Like, there are clear artistic decisions in those shows, whereas in the MCU shows, it feels like it's the same template. Like, the CGI is kind of questionable in a lot of these green screen city backgrounds, and it doesn't feel as authentic or real as the Marvel Netflix shows. So on top of the fact that the Marvel Netflix shows have double the amount of episodes and are TVMA as opposed to PG-13 essentially, I actually just think the villains and the stories are more appealing on Marvel Netflix because there's more time to really set them up and you feel uncomfortable. Like in Daredevil season 3, I felt like all hope was lost. I thought there was no way they were going to successfully get out of the situation they were in. It felt like Kingpin had taken over the city and there was nothing anybody, including Daredevil, could do about it. In the MCU shows, there's not enough time, so you can kind of predict by the 6th episode, okay, they're going to wrap it up pretty quickly here and pretty much leave us unsatisfied. Even DC TV is better than the MCU Disney Plus shows because Peacemaker is 8 episodes, which is still longer than the MCU Disney Plus shows, and by just adding 2 more episodes, they're able to really add on to a character from the movies in John Cena's Peacemaker and completely take his character in a new direction from the movies. That's something that I think a lot of these TV shows have failed to do. Of course, Moon Knight is a new character and all the other TV shows are characters from the movies, but even DC understands TV a little bit more than the MCU. And it's unfortunate because the MCU movies are some of the best movies we get. Spider-Man, No Way Home, and Shang-Chi were 2 of my favorites from last year. And if you look at the Avengers movies, the Captain America movies, we get phenomenal films from the MCU. So I just don't understand why they feel like they have to follow the 6-episode formula on TV and why they're just not as great when compared to other TV shows. Because if you compare MCU movies to DC movies or even regular movies that come out that get nominated for even Oscars, they go toe-to-toe with them. But comparing MCU shows to other superhero shows like Peacemaker and the Marvel Netflix shows, even The Boys or Invincible, there's a massive drop-off in quality and especially rewatchability. So as much as I want to love the MCU shows, and I even have some Funko Pops behind me because I love the characters in certain moments from these shows, I just think that they could take the MCU shows to that movie level and they're still holding back for some reason. Now, the last 2 episodes of Moon Knight could prove me wrong, and I will be happy to sit here and make a video where I eat my words saying Moon Knight is the best MCU Disney Plus show and they really won me over. But I just wish that I could sit here and say that the MCU Disney Plus shows were on par with a lot of other superhero shows, and that's just not the case, unfortunately. But what do you guys think of the MCU Disney Plus shows? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bells. I do cover the MCU quite a bit here on the channel. But thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.